The thugs in this, that's what I said to him. Oh, I couldn't tell. See me.
He's
Look
a
how.
big dog. I'm just saying.
Why you gonna do that? It's comedy.
I'm saying, with my boy shot by Manzo, he in the trenches. I brought him to the trenches in Sacramento, you know what I'm saying? We where them niggas said we can't go. And tap in with them though, they gonna pull up anywhere, they dope, sure.
First lick, had me addicted to that baggie like a surf stick, huh? Just like a perm kiss, fuck the bag, I ain't learned shit. Yeah, huh? Come shiny, you get took, nigga. On my first lick, had me addicted.
This is Vaishon, Shooter Gang VJ Johnson, a 25-year-old rising star from Sacramento's unforgiving Oak Park neighborhood, who would be found brutally executed in his mother's driveway on November 1st, 2023, in what investigators would reveal as one of the most calculated, cold-blooded acts of gang vengeance to ever cross state lines. But before we dive into the shocking details of how a chain theft in a Sacramento recording studio would eventually lead to a man being gunned down over 1,000 miles away in front of his own mother's house, let me take you back to June 13th, 1998, where this tragic story truly began. The scene that unfolded in Porter, Texas, on that autumn afternoon was nothing short of a professionally executed hit. Johnson was followed to his mother's home on Bitterroot Drive by suspects driving a Pontiac Grand Prix, a vehicle that investigators would later trace through 4 separate sales, mixed in a fraudulent Cash App transaction that would eventually lead them straight to the doorstep of 31-year-old Nishad Scruggs. Scruggs exited the vehicle with clear intent, chased the young rapper down like prey, and opened fire. As Johnson desperately tried to escape, falling to the ground in his mother's driveway, Scruggs stood directly over his wounded body and continued firing multiple rounds at point-blank range, ensuring there would be no survival or second chances whatsoever. When Montgomery County deputies arrived on the scene, they encountered a nightmare that no family should ever have to witness. Vaishon lying motionless in a pool of his own blood, riddled with gunshot wounds, while frantic attempts at resuscitation proved futile, and the young artist was pronounced dead right there in the driveway. The most disturbing aspect of this entire tragedy was that this wasn't a random act of violence, a robbery gone wrong, or even a heat-of-the-moment confrontation. This was premeditated murder, meticulously planned and executed by individuals who had traveled specifically from Sacramento, California, with the singular purpose of ending Vaishon Johnson's life. But what could drive someone to commit such a heinous act?
I want to say when Shooter Gang Coney got his chain confiscated.
Okay, I love how you always say confiscated instead of stole or took.
Confiscated. It was confiscated.
To truly understand how we arrived at this devastating conclusion, we need to examine the man at the center of this tragedy. Vaishon Johnson, better known to his growing fan base as Shooter Gang VJ, was much more than just a rapper trying to make it big in an oversaturated industry. He was an emerging voice in the West Coast underground scene, a member of the influential Shooter Gang collective that had been making serious waves throughout Sacramento's Oak Park neighborhood since the mid-2010s. Born and raised in Oak Park, a neighborhood long synonymous with gang activity, particularly among blood sets that had been established since the 1980s, Johnson was surrounded by violence and street politics from his earliest memories. He aligned himself with Shooter Gang, a collective that included notable artists like Shooter Gang Coney, Shooter Gang Jojo, and Shooter Gang Fleecy, and together they created a raw, unapologetically authentic sound that resonated with fans who craved real street narratives over manufactured personas. VJ's music career had been steadily gaining momentum throughout the late 2010s, with tracks like Trippin', Lil Baby Freestyle, and collaborative efforts such as Intro with Coney and Fleecy, showcasing his evolution from underground freestyles to increasingly polished productions. His albums and mixtapes, including FM We Ball, Leaders of the Underground, and Pending Millionaire, captured the harsh realities of street life with both brutal honesty and artistic nuance. What made VJ's story particularly tragic was that he seemed to recognize the danger he was in and actually took concrete steps to remove himself from harm's way. In early 2023, Johnson made the difficult decision to relocate to Texas, seeking a fresh start where he could focus on his music career and family life, far from Sacramento's volatile gang landscape that had already taken too many lives. He had witnessed firsthand the deadly consequences of street beef. He had even been present in a vehicle during the unsolved murder of fellow shooter gang member DeRay in 2022. But here's the cruel reality that VJ learned too late. In the modern era of gang warfare, geographical distance means absolutely nothing when your enemies are determined enough to settle scores. The moment that chain was confiscated in that Sacramento studio, a series of retaliatory actions was set in motion, and VJ, despite his attempts to distance himself from the chaos, would become one of those casualties.
I seen the tension coming. It wasn't, so when it happened, it wasn't, but I feel like Mozzie waited until like certain individuals were gone to do it. But him doing that, he forgot who was still a part of Shooter Gang that still had some type of say-so in regards to the politics in Oak Park, in regards to Zilla or whatever the case may be. So Mozzie's really Zilla. But when he did that to Coney, it was when everybody was either passing away, going to jail for a long time. Like, I feel like, and it really wasn't Mozzie. I feel like Mozzie was venting to Mozzie.
The chain confiscation incident occurred during what should have been a routine studio session, but tensions over loyalty, snitching allegations, and respect had long been building beneath the surface for months. The catalyst was a heated dispute over Gangster Jeff, an Oak Park OG whom Shooter Gang members accused of being a snitch, an informant who had cooperated with law enforcement, which in street culture represents the absolute worst form of betrayal imaginable.
Okay, like they literally come to the studio. No, I'm telling you guys this. This is what happened.
Okay,
They come to the studio. Okay, they come. Shooter Gang Coney, Shooter Gang Fleecy, Ezzy Marcus, he's with some people from Frank Lone. They're already in the studio in LA. Mozzie and Mozzie come to the studio with B.O.E. Mumu.
Mm-hmm.
They all come to the studio. And then Mozzie comes and he sits down. Mozzie does what he does, Eric.
The situation escalated dramatically when Shooter Gang Fleecy struck Mozzie during the argument, prompting Mozzie's security team to retaliate by assaulting Coney and, in the ultimate act of disrespect, physically confiscating his chain right there in the studio. But Mozzie didn't stop at simply taking the chain. He launched what would become infamously known as the Greasy Neck Tour to utterly destroy Coney's credibility in the streets. Mozzie and his affiliates wore Coney's chain publicly at shows, on social media, in music videos, everywhere possible to maximize the embarrassment. Even worse, they allowed random fans to wear the chain while Coney's own music was playing in the background, symbolically greasing it up. The response from Shooter Gang was swift, brutal, and equally symbolic. They retaliated by confiscating chains from multiple members of Mozzie's camp, including SSG Kobe's jewelry and pieces belonging to Gunther's Exotics, flaunting their stolen trophies online just as Mozzie had done to them.
First lick, had me addicted to that baggy like a surf stick, huh? Just like a perm kiss said, fuck the bag, I ain't learned shit. Yeah, huh? Come shine and you get took, nigga. On my first lick, had me addicted.
VJ himself became deeply involved in this escalating conflict, posting paperwork, documents, or evidence meant to expose or defend actions on social media, further entrenching himself in a feud that would ultimately cost him his life. The back and forth continued to escalate beyond just stolen jewelry into diss tracks, with Coney's Free Smoke 2 accusing Mozzie of maintaining ties with informants, while Mozzie's Tell the Truth dismissed Shooter Gang as outsiders from areas like Elk Grove rather than true Oak Park representatives.
I'm talking about a chain we been even with the scope.
We just got a 2-for-1. It was fleecy to the throat.
It was like 5 deep, we really beefing with some hoes.
Wore that chain to a show, had a steak, think he bold.
I'll speak about that time in Arkansas, niggas talk. When the cops found that Glock in your bag and you froze. You said that ain't even yours, that's your buddy Nano Poe. Luckily they let us go, or man, it would've been some work. You keep rapping like you is, but you ain't putting in the work. You niggas from LA, quit all that talking about the turf.
No, he Mozzie been the bitch, he ain't never did no dirt.
Can't laugh happy that he finally get a buzz.
you 50-something, still dissing niggas does.
Dang, Mac J, why you bring my name up? You seen that interview, you don't know where you came from.
But words on tracks quickly transformed into bodies on streets. Mozzie's bodyguard was killed shortly after the initial chain incident, allegedly by Red Paint members including MG Stax and Mava, intensifying an already volatile situation into all-out warfare. In response, Mozzie reportedly placed a bounty on Mava's head, and in 2021, Mava was shot and killed at a party by the Mula twins, a group that included Marco Mula, who would eventually be charged in connection with VJ's murder.
He didn't want to really talk about it, and no, that's what happened, and that is the reason why there's bloodshed in our park until this day. And it's not gonna stop. It was all because of that chain.
Really? It can all go back to that, damn.
It's always gonna go back to that.
Wow. Crazy.
The guy who initially snatched Coney's chain was killed within 6 months of the incident. Additional deaths followed in rapid succession. Shooter gang member K-Squeeze was killed in June 2020 in what was suspected to be an internal betrayal or backdoor hit, with his funeral becoming the scene of more violence when attendees were assaulted. Marvell, another shooter gang affiliate, was killed at a party in September 2021, also suspected to be a backdoor hit from within their own circle. The body count continued to rise as former friends who had once collaborated on music, toured together, and publicly supported each other's careers now actively sought each other's destruction. This wasn't just about a chain anymore. It had evolved into a complex web of betrayals, revenge killings, and deep-seated resentments that made reconciliation impossible and ensured that violence would continue until one side was completely decimated. This reveals how Oak Park's gang landscape had fractured from a relatively unified Bloods network into warring factions, with Shooter Gang and Hell Gang, which is closely associated with Mozzie and also known as Hell Gang Mafia or HGM, representing different branches that had once been allies. Initially, these groups had collaborated extensively. Mozzie had featured Shooter Gang members in his videos, taken them on tours, and provided crucial exposure that helped launch their careers. VJ's involvement through his diss tracks and social media posts made him a marked man, and his relocation to Texas, while sensible from a safety perspective, ultimately proved insufficient protection against enemies who were willing to cross any distance to settle scores. The investigation into VJ's murder would prove to be as complex and far-reaching as the beef that caused it, involving multiple law enforcement agencies across different states and requiring investigators to untangle years of gang history, social media posts, diss tracks, and retaliatory violence to understand the full scope of what had transpired. The Montgomery County Sheriff's Office Homicide and Violent Crimes Unit led the investigation, working in close collaboration with crime scene investigators, Sacramento Police Department, and Sacramento County Sheriff's Office to piece together evidence that would span from Texas suburbs to California streets. The breakthrough came when the feds recovered security footage from a neighbor's camera that captured the license plate of the Pontiac Grand Prix used in the murder, providing investigators with their first solid lead in tracking down the suspects. But tracing the vehicle's ownership proved to be a complex puzzle in itself. The car had changed hands through 4 separate sales, eventually leading investigators to Nishad Scruggs through a fraudulent Cash App transaction that he had used in the final purchase. Cell phone data and toll records further sealed the prosecution's theory that Scruggs and his conspirators had traveled from Sacramento specifically to carry out this premeditated execution.
This just in, the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office released a photo tonight of a car they're looking for in connection with a deadly shooting in Porter this afternoon.
Maria Aguilera live in that neighborhood tonight where neighbors are in shock. Maria?
Lenmia officials tell us the victim likely lived in this neighborhood, but tonight they have not released his name. They say it's still early in the investigation and that there are a lot of missing pieces. Right now, their focus is catching the shooter. Hours after deputies swarmed this neighborhood, investigators remain here tonight. closing roads and searching for evidence for hours.
Incidents like these, the residents are normally always pretty shook up.
Sheriff's deputies found the man shot multiple times. Bullet casings littered the home's front yard.
Once we get the suspect identified, it'll help us clarify a lot of stuff.
Investigators tell us tonight it's likely the suspect and victim knew each other. They believe the pair got into some sort of argument. Then one pulled a gun and opened fire. The suspect left in this vehicle.
Nishad Scruggs, 31 years old at the time of his arrest, had a criminal history dating back to 2011, including dismissed charges for assault on a public servant, multiple assault charges, drug-related offenses, and a 2021 warrant for unlawful carrying of a weapon. Scruggs was then arrested in Sacramento on June 25, 2025, following a warrant issued on June 4th of the same year, nearly 2 years after VJ's murder. He was extradited to Texas on July 16, 2025, where he faces murder charges with a bond set at an extraordinary $1 million by Judge Grant. But Scruggs wasn't alone in this conspiracy. Co-suspect Trayvon Oates, 28 years old and known in Sacramento rap circles as Marco Mula, was indicted on October 7, 2025 for his role in VJ's murder. However, Oates presents a unique complication for prosecutors. He currently remains in California custody on an entirely separate, unrelated murder charge, and authorities are still working to secure his extradition to Texas to face charges in VJ's case. Marco Mula's involvement is particularly significant given his connection to previous murders in this ongoing beef. He was identified as one of the Mula twins who killed Mava at a party in 2021. Another suspect mentioned in connection with the case is Back End Shark, described as another Mozzie affiliate, further cementing the prosecution's theory that this murder was orchestrated by individuals aligned with the Hell Gang faction in the ongoing Shooter Gang Hell Gang beef. The impact of VJ's death extended far beyond the streets of Sacramento and the suburbs of Porter, Texas. His family was shattered by the loss, particularly his older brother Carl Granderson, then 26 years old and playing at defensive end at the New Orleans Saints. Granderson had signed a $52 million contract extension in September 2023, just weeks before his younger brother's murder.
On my hip, it ain't in no backpack. Niggas scared to do a song cause they don't want no backpack. I ain't finna fight you, bitch, I got a bad bag. Heard that nigga pop perks, I hope he get a bad bag. The city ugly, I can't even have no fun. Still fuck with me, now my nephew need a gun. But I ain't tripping, that's my sister older son. Said niggas out here dying young and I don't, damn, my shit ain't for the club. It's for the niggas, gang banging, selling drugs. It's for the bitches that be hanging with the thugs. I just met a nigga, thought he was a fan, he was the plug. Who they ask about it? Free the niggas that ain't snitching and they're maxing out. We got switches for them niggas think they acting out. Get on his ass, ain't no passing, ain't no tapping out. I'm with niggas that be crashing out. LeBron get up in that mode and get the blacking out.
Despite the profound grief of losing his brother to senseless violence, Granderson channeled his pain into his performance on the field, leading the Saints with 5.5 sacks that season while dealing with his loss. How many more lives will be cut off before the rap world sees this as a pandemic that has gone on for too long? Let me know what you think in the comments section